Okay. They both have heads. Joe Rogan and Dr. Phil, their heads remind me of eggs, right? And I eat eggs for breakfast. All right.
Boom.
It's like when they were trying to say that the OK symbol was white power. Like, God damn it.
Yeah.
You can't just co-opt the OK thing. It's been the OK since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Fuck are you doing?
I never understood that.
It's ridiculous. It's incredible.
I never understood that.
And there's a ton of black people who've done that. It's like the idea that that's a white power symbol.
Well, people were using it, though.
Some people were using it as white power.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were using it, so they were.
Yeah, dude. I'm surprised fucking Jamie hasn't been fired yet. He gets so annoyed by Jamie constantly correcting him. Yeah, it was started on 4chan.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but here's the problem. If you claim that it's like a joke, like you can't just ironically, you can't be like, oh, well, I'm a white supremacist and I'm going to say this is a white supremacist hand sign, but what they don't know is I don't mean it.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah,
that's not how jokes work. That's not how pranks work.
Something I've talked about where
that's just
people
trolling.
Hold people to current standards.
Okay, now he's going to talk about presentism.
Well, presentism is something I've talked about where people hold people to current standards based on something they may have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago, as an idiot teenager. And it's gone so far as
I've never even heard the
to
word
go
before.
all the way back 250 years. They go back to George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and they want to change school names or tear their statues down now because they owned slaves 250 years ago.
Mm-hmm. They don't
Was
own them
that
now.
a good thing to own slaves? No, that's an ugly thing to do ever.
Oh, this is something
Right.
I've always noticed. I don't think you'll ever hear me say, was slavery a good thing? No. You'll never hear me say those
Right,
words.
Of course. But at the time, it was not looked at. The mores and folkways and laws 250 years ago were not the same as they are today. And they judged them because they didn't have the foresight to say
There were people against it then.
250
That's how it ended.
Yeah, like the
there
entire
were-
country of the United Kingdom.
Like there were people against it then.
We're like the last country. Okay. All right.
years from now, there will be different standards than they are now.
Okay.
So they judge them now based on what they did 250 years ago.
Yeah, dude.
No,
I think that's a good fucking excuse when you, like, 2 years from now when you can go, well, I didn't know genocide was wrong.
Wait, what?
I thought all the people who were against genocide were anti-Semitic, and some of them were. That's what you're gonna hear.
But-
That's what you're gonna hear.
Using today's yardstick, and that's why they're tearing those statues down now. It's called presentism. It's like if you were in
That's
a
not
neighborhood and the speed limit was 30, and you drove 30, but then they came along and said, well, we're going to change this to 20, and we're going to give you a ticket retroactively.
The problem with that argument is it presumes that people today wouldn't own slaves if they could.
Yeah, I mean, people today do.
Well, they do.
Yeah,
We
you
have
know,
wage slavery,
yeah,
dude.
yeah.
There's people who are fighting right now. There are states that are fighting for the right to put children to work.
And to get married on top of all of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you drove 30. And you said, well, but it was 30 when I was driving 30. I know. But you should have known we were going to change it to 20 in the future and driven 20.
This would
So
never
here's
happen.
a ticket, Mr. Rogan.
Yeah, but there was like John Brown going. They were like she was trying to issue tickets then. Nat Turner was issuing tickets like a motherfucker. Like if you didn't catch on,
those were some tickets. You should have known when you enslaved us that we were gonna get mad about that.
That's presentism. And it's happened a lot. Why do you think they're tearing down those statues? Because of what they did 250 years ago. And I'm not saying it was a good
Well, okay, I should just correct this. Presentism is having the ability to see history for what it was, not what we wish it to be. So I'll give you a great example of presentism. Right now, I'm a Ken Burns fan.
Okay.
By the way, if you subscribe to PBS, you get, it's $5. And then at tax season, it's considered a charitable donation.
Okay, that makes sense.
As opposed to
You can
Netflix.
write it
That's
off.
not a charitable. Yeah.
Right.
So anyways, the worst one in the first one was Civil War. It's what made him famous. And it made this guy named Shelby Foote very famous, who's very much reminds me of Dr. Phil. He's a very anti-intellectual, you know?
A pseudo-intellectual.
Yeah, he doesn't have doctor in front of his name to trick people into thinking he's smart. But he has this down-home, folksy, I like to whittle kind of, he's from the South, and he like romanticizes the South. Okay. And he would say stupid shit like, well, General Lee, he loved the Union, but he loved his precious state of Virginia much more. And that's why he fought. And then you're like, well, now modern historians would go like, no, we're actually going to look at his letters and his public statements.
Right.
And he owned slaves, and he just believed in slavery, and that's why he fought. He didn't fight because he was just siding because these are his homies. No, he was like, okay, so that's presentism. And what they're trying to do right now is there was also a black woman who was an actual historian. Shelby Foote was like a layman's historian. He was like a folk historian. He wasn't like a trained...
Like a YouTuber.
Researcher. Yeah, pretty much. Before YouTube, he was a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So he wasn't like a trained researcher. But they took this woman and they cut her talking time was like 20% of the film. And Shelby Foote was like 80%. And Shelby Foote became this big star and stuff because everybody loves Dr. Phil types. And so presentism would be like, why don't we take the cutting room, why don't we cut all the dumb shit that Shelby Foote said, and why don't we replace it with the stuff we put on the cutting room floor, which was this interview with this actual historian. That's what presentism is. It's like it's just addressing the realities of the time,
right? Rather
than it's like
like you said,
Dukes of Hazzard. That flag meant freedom,
right?
But then later on we realize, oh, actually the flag didn't.
No, that's actually
mean that. It actually meant
flag.
Something else. That's what presentism is. And the statues he's talking about, dude, there's no statues from 250. Those statues are from 1900. They're from Jim Crow, and they're all Southern Confederate people that nobody's even heard of.
Some of these statues were erected in the 60s. In the 70s,
yeah, exactly, dude. There's some. I actually looked it up. The only figure from 250 years ago, the closest, was Columbus. That's the only one that got taken down. Every other one are like Jim Crow South. I just can't stand Dr. Phil.
And why do we need a statue of Christopher Columbus, like, at all? Like,
I don't even know why. I get confused by that story. I don't know what
like,
the
it's
fuck he
well
discovered and what he
documented.
hasn't.
Like, he was basically what we would consider a terrorist. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't think he really discovered the country. I keep getting mixed stories. Even in high school.
Discovered.
Presentism. Presentism is when I was a kid, you were taught that John Brown was a madman. Today's kids get taught that John Brown was a hero. That's the difference. That's what presentism is. But Dr. Phil's just, by the way, Bad Baby, before she was Bad Baby, went on Dr. Phil's show and said, I made you.
Yo. Well, she didn't, but it was her and Oprah. I think Oprah
got him the show.
Yeah.
But when she said, nobody would have heard of you if it wasn't for me, she kind of was right. Because when you think about the Dr. Phil show, what do you think of? What are the most memorable moments?
Catch Me Outside.
That's the only thing that came from that show. And also, Jerry Springer was a better human being than Dr. Phil.
Rest in peace to Jerry Springer. I mean,
Is he dead?
Yeah.